Truistery Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
Truistery Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. Ella Harper's flight touches down at Coastal Ridge Regional Airport just as the sun begins its lazy descent behind the rolling Pacific Hills. She steps off the jet bridge in a sleek navy blazer and designer jeans, attire carefully chosen to blend professionalism and comfort. Her carry-on rattles with the weight of a laptop and a lifetime of expectations. 6 years ago, she left this town of weathered boardwalks and Art Deco cottages with a scholarship in one hand and big dreams in the other. Today, she's home again, diploma in hand, and a heap of ambition still coursing through her veins. As Ella winds through the terminal, her phone buzzes. It's a text from her mother. A single line that encapsulates both relief and admonition. Don't come home empty-handed. Dinner at 7. Beneath the casual reminder, Ella senses the undercurrent of pressure. Her mother, Margaret Harper, has always equated success with visible achievements, trophies, titles, and the kind of stable life most people keep pinned to a vision board. She waves at a familiar face, a local shuttle driver who escorted her to college orientation nearly a decade ago. He looks older now, weathered by salt air and long Pacific storms.
Ella Harper.
Back from Boston, he calls. Ella offers a tight smile and polite nod.
She's not here for small talk.
She's here for one mission: to secure her place in the family legacy, a real estate powerhouse that flourished under her grandfather's guidance, but now faces stiff competition from sleek, tech-driven startups. At baggage claim, Ella's roller bag slides onto the carousel. She grabs it and heads outside, inhaling the crisp coastal breeze mixed with hints of eucalyptus from nearby groves. A black SUV with tinted windows and a discreet Harper license plate waits at the curb. Margaret steps out from the shadows of the vehicle, arms folded, scarlet lipstick bright against her pale complexion. She greets Ella with a quick peck on the cheek, more formality than affection. "Ella, darling," Margaret says, her voice smooth as aged Chardonnay. "Welcome home. You look well-built for winter lectures and late-night data crunching. But let's not waste time." She slips into the SUV, gesturing for Ella to join her. Without waiting for an answer, Margaret's driver swings the door closed. Ella settles into the leather seat, heart pounding. The SUV glides onto Pacific Avenue, lined with neon signs advertising seafood bistros and artisanal coffee shops. She watches neon reflections ripple across traffic, reminders of every college town she outgrew and left behind.
Now,
she's back to face her most daunting challenge yet, proving that Harvard's algorithms and MIT's data modeling can translate into tangible results for the family's real estate empire. Margaret taps the dashboard clock. 6:15 p.m. Dinner begins at 7 sharp, she reminds Ella. "Your cousin Logan got himself a full-ride scholarship in mechanical engineering last year. Yesterday, he landed an interview with Ventura Construction. I'd like you to update me on your Boston highlights, no omissions." Ella bites her lip. She's the eldest child and should have been the natural heir to Harper and Company, the family's construction and development firm. But the board questioned her decision to pursue data science rather than an MBA in real estate. She's both brilliant and unconventional, and her mother worries that unorthodox methods might unravel the careful tapestry of Harper tradition. "How is the East Coast?" Margaret asks, her tone crisp, challenging and exhilarating.
Ella replies evenly.
"I led a team project on predictive housing trends, collaborated with urban planners in Cambridge, and spoke at a fintech conference." She offers the highlights in rapid succession, each one polished to demonstrate competence and achievement. Margaret's expression remains unreadable. "That's all impressive," she says. "But what does it mean for Harper and Company? I need specifics. How many units can you forecast selling in Marina Vista? What's the ROI potential on that new eco-district proposal? Numbers, hard numbers."
Ella, Ella exhala softly.
She prepared for broad questions, but she didn't expect a grilling en route to dinner. She reaches into her tote and pulls out a slim portfolio case containing charts, projections, and a proprietary algorithm she developed for housing demand analysis. "Let me show you," Ella says, opening the case. She slides a glossy graph across Margaret's lap: projected occupancy rates, rental yield comparisons, predictive analytics on suburban versus urban migration. Margaret leans forward, eyebrows arched. "And what about risk?" Margaret challenges, tapping a data point. "Your model assumes no major economic downturn in the next 5 years. Can you account for a 20% mortgage rate spike?" Ella anticipated this. She clicks through to a sensitivity analysis, revealing alternate scenarios under varying interest rates, supply chain delays, and demographic shifts. Each scenario concludes with actionable strategies: adjusted unit mix, phased development timelines, diversified investment in mixed-use spaces. Margaret's lips purse, but she doesn't interrupt. After a minute of studied silence, she tucks the graphs away, snaps the case shut, and nods once. "Well done," she says quietly. "We'll discuss your proposal in depth after dinner. If the board sees this level of detail, they might finally reconsider your seat on the executive committee." Ella allows herself a small smile. This is what she came for. She feels the weight of family history, of expectations layered over generations of hard work and tradition. Yet, she also senses a shift, a subtle recognition that data science and modern analytics can rejuvenate the brick-and-mortar real estate world. The SUV turns onto a scenic lane lined with string lights and bougainvillea, arriving at the Driftwood Pavilion, an open-air seafood restaurant perched on a bluff overlooking crashing waves below. Margaret pays no heed to the crashing surf or lantern tables. She's focused on the outcome of tonight's meeting. As they step out, Ella straightens her blazer and breathes in the salty night air. She's home, under the same roof, the same legacy, but armed with new tools and fresh resolve. Tonight's dinner is more than a family gathering. It's an addition, a reckoning, and the opening act of her return. And Ella Harper is ready to claim her place in the story. Ella Harper stood before the towering glass entrance of MetroStone Group on her first Monday morning, shoulders squared and determination coursing through her veins. Less than a week had passed since she aced her interview with CEO Mason Sterling, transforming what began as a rejected data analyst application into an executive assistant role that promised both visibility and influence.
Now,
everything depended on her ability to navigate the sprawling marble lobby, master the firm's internal systems, and establish herself as a trusted right hand to the company's youngest-ever CEO. As she stepped through the revolving doors, the hum of 100 conversations washed over her, colleagues greeting one another by name, security guards checking badges, and the distant hiss of the espresso machine at the reception cafe. Ella adjusted the strap of her leather tote, inside which rested her laptop, notebooks filled with strategic insights, and a meticulously organized planner. Her custom badge scanned at the turnstile, letting her into a world of polished brass doors and digital directory screens. A friendly receptionist greeted her by name, offering a warm smile that quelled some of her nerves. Moments later, Mason Sterling appeared in the mezzanine lounge, his silhouette backlit by panoramic windows framing the Pacific horizon. He extended his hand in greeting, equally professional and genuine. Ella felt a spark of confidence as she shook his hand. This was the man who had seen her potential when the HR team had not. Mason whisked her through the elevator ride in near silence, his phone humming with urgent emails. Ella imagined the weight of responsibilities pressing on him: multi-million-dollar developments, shareholder meetings, and a vision to modernize MetroStone's century-old portfolio. Her introduction to the day was smooth but demanding. Mason handed her a sleek tablet loaded with digital calendars, project dashboards, and critical performance indicators. He walked her through the firm's proprietary analytics platform, one she had helped prototype in the predictive leasing model she mentioned during her interview. Ella recognized the interface instantly, a testament to MetroStone's deep investment in data science. Already, She found herself mapping out how our algorithms might refine supply chain timelines or optimize the phasing of new eco-districts. Within the first hour, she arranged Mason's schedule for the week. A video call with Japanese investors on Tuesday, a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the Golden Harbor waterfront site on Wednesday, and a strategy workshop in Silicon Valley on Thursday. She flagged potential conflicts, suggested pre-meeting briefs, and drafted concise talking points for each event, inputs she hoped would free Mason's mind for higher-level decisions. Each time a new alert popped onto her tablet, she hovered a finger over the screen to triage it swiftly and efficiently. By midday, Ella had learned the names and faces of the leadership team. Lucia Delgado in finance, whose spreadsheets balanced down to the penny, Ravi Singh in engineering, whose reputation for tackling complex infrastructure challenges preceded him, and Fatima Al-Bashir in sustainability, whose passion for green building had reshaped MetroStone's environmental goals. Ella introduced herself in each office, offering a handshake and a quick, "I'm here to support you and Mason in any way I can." Her calm competence elicited nods of approval, an encouraging sign that she was forging colleagues, not just contacts. During lunch, Mason invited Ella to join him in the executive dining room, an elegant space overlooking the harbor. As he ate a grilled salmon salad, he asked her for her quick read on the recent occupancy slump at the Marina Vista development. Ella shared a snapshot of her preliminary analysis, explaining how shifting U.S. immigration patterns, remote work trends, and a surge in shorter-term rentals had combined to depress long-term lease rates. She proposed running a segmentation analysis to identify micromarkets, college-educated renters seeking proximity to bike trails, for instance, or remote workers looking for high-speed connectivity. Mason listened intently, occasionally nodding and scribbling notes on a leather-bound notebook. When she finished, he tapped his pen against the table. "Ella, I want you to lead that analysis," he said, voice steady. "Work with Fatima and Ravi to integrate sustainability metrics, energy efficiency scores, walkability ratings, and come back to me next Monday with a presentation. Your insights will guide our next marketing push." Her heart leapt. This was far beyond the typical scope of an assistant's duties. It was a vote of confidence that she could not take lightly. Ella thanked him, promising a comprehensive, data-driven proposal. She finished the rest of her salad, savoring the moment before heading back to Mason's office. The afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Ella drafted emails, organized digital folders, and filtered Mason's inbox for high-priority messages. She attended a quick project touchbase via video link, ensuring that weekend deliverables on the Golden Harbor site were on track. 2 clients requested updated financial models. She forwarded their requests to the finance team with her own annotated versions of the relevant spreadsheets. At precisely 3:47 p.m., an alert popped up. The board of directors had added a last-minute item to next week's agenda, an in-depth briefing on emerging coastal resilience technologies. Ella jotted down a reminder to gather research on sea level rise projections and innovative floodproofing materials. By the time she noticed the sunlight fading beyond the horizon, her shoulders ached and her stomach growled. She heard Mason's voice over the half-open office door. "Ella, can we wrap up for the day? I'm heading to a private dinner with a potential partner." "Of course," she replied, closing her laptop. She prepared the briefing materials for the evening, Mason's talking points, a concise SWOT analysis of the partner's portfolio, and her recommended talking point adjustments. She placed the tablet on the desk by the door. As they walked to the elevator, Mason paused. "Thank you, Ella. This was a solid first day. I'm looking forward to seeing where your analysis takes us and how you'll manage this role going forward." His tone was genuine appreciation, not just courtesy.
Ella smiled,
A mix of relief and pride warming her chest. Back in the lobby, she paused to gather her things. The receptionist offered her an after-work coffee. She gratefully accepted a decaf latte, foam still warm in her hands. She checked her phone. A text from her best friend, Mia, read, "Congrats again. Dinner tonight to celebrate." Ella typed back a quick "absolutely" and slipped the phone into her pocket. Outside, the cool coastal breeze greeted her. The tower's lights shimmered against the dusky sky as she walked to her car. She reflected on the whirlwind of assignments, the rapid-fire introductions, and the unexpected responsibility of guiding major strategic analysis. Back at her apartment, a short drive from MetroStone's headquarters, she pulled out her planner and scribbled first official assignment, Marina Vista Data plus Sustainability, in bold letters. She sat down at her small kitchen counter, sipped her latte, and allowed herself a moment to savor the satisfaction of a day lived fully and perfectly. MetroStone Group was no longer just a name on her resume. It was the stage where her Boston-honed skills would play out in real time, where her analytical models could sway million-dollar decisions, and where she could finally weave together her family's legacy and her own professional passion. Pulling her notes closer, Ella set to work on refining her Marina Vista outline. She knew the hours ahead would challenge her, but that was precisely why she'd returned home. The real test was just beginning, and Ella Harper was ready to meet it head-on. Ella Harper's second week at MetroStone ramped up in intensity the moment she stepped off the elevator on Monday morning. The open-plan office on the 18th floor, with its pale wood desks, bright skylights, and sleek glass walls, was buzzing with the hum of construction industry veterans and data-driven newcomers alike. Ella had already forged tentative introductions: Lucia Delgado in finance, Ravi Singh in engineering, and Fatima Al-Bashir in sustainability. But beneath the polite smiles lay currents she was only beginning to sense. Her first clue came when she arrived at Mason Sterling's office at 8:05 a.m. to retrieve his tablet. The screen's brightness was dimmed and the background image had been replaced. Instead of MetroStone's logo, a cartoonish gif of a dancing bricklayer flickered on loop.
Ella frowned.
She tapped the power button, expecting a normal home screen. Instead, the tablet scrambled before settling on a series of mocking memes about that data girl in the corner cubicle. She blinked. A quick glance at the schedule widget revealed that her appointment with Mason was intact. Whoever had done this knew her login. Whoever had access, too. She tapped settings with clenched fingers, then switched the background back. But as she did so, dozens of emails loaded, some in Mason's sent folder, drafts addressed to MetroStone's board, all containing tenths of confidential strategic analysis. Ella's pulse quickened. Had she just left her credentials unsecured? Before she could think further, a message pinged in her Messages app. Nice gif, Bricklayer BQ. Let's see how long she lasts. Bricklayer BQ was one of the GIF titles. The message was unsigned, but Ella's stomach knotted. She forward-searched the message's header and saw only an internal IP range, an office PC. Within minutes she learned who had sent it. Riley Knox, Mason's former assistant, had been reassigned to the legal department after expressing discomfort with data-driven disruption. She'd told people she preferred traditional protocols, an indirect way of saying that she resented Ella's rapid rise and open access. Ella's first instinct was to report the sabotage to HR. But she hesitated, unsure if HR would believe her or see it as first-week jitters. Instead, she locked the tablet down, revoked any open sessions with IT's help, and sent Mason a brief note. Image tampered. Investigating Ella. Then she set out to gather evidence. Her second clue came at 10:15 a.m. during her weekly coordination meeting with the construction and sustainability leads to discuss the Marina Vista project. As she detailed her predictive segmentation model, pointing out how rent elasticity and crime rate correlations suggested adjusting the marketing timeline for two-bedroom units, her slide deck vanished. Suddenly, the screen flickered, reverted to Riley's screensaver, a sepia-toned photo of MetroStone's founder, Mr. Edmund Sterling, giving the thumbs up. A single caption read, "Back in my day, we built skyscrapers without algorithms." Heart pounding, Ella held her composure as gasps rippled through the room. Ravi stared, mouth hanging open. Fatima leaned forward, concern in her eyes. Lucia Delgado looked ready to intervene. But before anyone could react, Ella clicked the remote's menu button twice, reopened her true deck, and picked up mid-sentence. As I was saying, we'll deploy targeted digital outreach to households earning above the local median income, coinciding with payroll cycles to maximize affordability windows. No one mentioned the screensaver. The meeting concluded on time. Mason sent thank you notes to each participant and called Ella in afterward. In his glass-walled office, he fixed her with a steady gaze. I saw what happened.
Ella skulder stiktanat.
Someone's trying to discredit me. He nodded. Her trial run didn't stick. The moment you regained control, she panicked, uploaded your proprietary models to the legal folder and renamed the slides. She's banking on us blocking your access. Ella swallowed. I double-checked permissions and found nothing else missing. But she knows the network. Mason frowned. Thanks to your forethought, IT's tracking her activity. We'll handle it discreetly. But until then, I need you unflappable. Anyone messing with my data or my team will answer to me personally. Relief and resolve welled in Ella's chest. Understood. The next salvo arrived at 2:47 p.m. As she walked to the communal kitchenette for a second coffee, the break room's digital bulletin board, usually displaying company announcements, flashed her LinkedIn profile, complete with a "Wanted for corporate espionage" sticker across her photo. Employees paused, whispers trailing behind her. She stood frozen until Mason emerged from HR's enclave, swiftly shutting down the display. "Hello again," he murmured. "Come with me." He escorted her through a series of private corridors to the fourth floor's security command center. 5 monitors showed live camera feeds: lobby, parking garage, executive offices, construction site cameras. Over in the corner, IT specialist David Kim swiveled in his chair. He pointed to a workstation with lines of log files. "She's got IP access on 5 different terminals. Every time you present, she finds a new way to slip in code." Ella peered at the logs. Hijacking the Wi-Fi at 10 p.m., spoofing MAC addresses. David nodded. "We've locked her out of most systems, but she's persistent." Mason's voice was quiet but firm. "Prepare for a full audit of Riley Knox's network privileges. And when she sends her next stunt, she'll face termination. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir," David said, fingers already flying across the keyboard. Ella exhaled. It was a relief to know MetroStone's top brass had her back, but a pang of guilt lingered. Riley had been with the company for 6 years. Perhaps she'd felt threatened by Ella's rapid integration. But sabotage crossed a line. By Wednesday morning, the word sabotage was whispered by the water cooler, where Ella overheard 2 junior analysts debating who would survive their first 90 days. She set out to normalize her presence, a warm smile here, a quick check-in with the receptionist there. She initiated a lunchtime brainstorming session with Fatima, discussing green roofing prototypes and climate resilience bonds, topics unrelated to Riley's antics. She wanted her colleagues to see her as part of the solution, not just the target of petty vendettas. On Thursday, Mason intervened publicly. During the weekly leadership huddle, where department heads convened to review KPIs and upcoming milestones, he opened with, "Before we begin, I want to address recent disruptions to our data and presentation systems. We value integrity and collaboration at MetroStone. Attempts to undermine any team member will not be tolerated. Let's move forward, starting with Ella's Marina Vista assessment." He clicked to Ella's deck, which sprang to life flawlessly. Interactive heat maps, regression lines, and a dynamic forecast slider. The room's attention sharpened, and all traces of the screensaver pranks evaporated. The VP of Marketing nodded appreciatively. The CFO made a note to allocate extra analytics budget, and the COO leaned in to ask questions about integrating AI into procurement workflows. Ella navigated every query with confidence, supported by the data she'd meticulously prepared. In that moment, the boardroom wasn't a battleground anymore. It was a laboratory for innovation. Later that afternoon, as Ella compiled the final draft of her Marina Vista proposal, David Kim sent her a secure message. "We've revoked Riley Knox's access. She's on administrative leave pending investigation. IT logs and HR are coordinating next steps." Ella let out a sigh, relief mingling with exhaustion. She wrote a brief note to Mason. "Thank you for the support today. I'll continue to focus on delivering actionable analytics." She clicked send, then allowed herself a moment to lean back and stretch. On Friday, the office atmosphere shifted. Conversations buzzed about the eco-district's pilot solar installation, upcoming client fly-ins, and a new partnership with a cutting-edge smart home provider. Ella joined a lunchtime roundtable on sustainability KPIs, contributed ideas on carbon offset bonds, and laughed easily when Ravi recounted a muddy site visit mishap. It felt like a team again, not factions at war. That evening, Mason dropped by Ella's desk. "You handled it well," he said quietly. "That could have derailed everything. But you kept your cool and delivered results. That's the kind of resilience we need."
Ella smiled, grateful.
It was a team effort, thanks to IT and your support. He paused, looking thoughtful. "I want you working directly with my strategic planning group on next quarter's mixed-use developments. Your insights and your composure under pressure are exactly why I brought you here." As he walked away, Ella watched his retreating figure and felt a surge of pride. The workplace conflict had tested her, but it hadn't broken her. Instead, it had underscored the value of integrity, preparation, and quiet determination. Emerging on the other side, she realized that MetroStone's future was not just a matter of timber, steel, and spreadsheets, but of people who, even under fire, rose above the fray to build something lasting. And Ella Harper was ready to help them do it, glitch-free and sabotage-proof. Ella Harper had settled into her role as executive assistant at MetroStone Group with remarkable poise. But she was still only dimly aware of the full measure of Mason Sterling's personal investment in her success. It wasn't until late Thursday afternoon, after the Riley Knox debacle had been resolved and MetroStone's leadership rally had publicly reaffirmed their support, that the depth of Mason's quiet affection became unmistakably clear. The day began like any other, Ella arriving at 7:45 a.m. sharp, coffee in hand, ready to sift through Mason's inbox and prepare his day's schedule. She took particular care with a digital invitation to a luncheon with Ventura Construction's VP, drafting precise bullet-pointed questions about joint ventures and sustainability. As she stepped into Mason's office to deliver the final agenda, the blinds were still drawn, bathing the room in a soft, gray glow. He looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable at first, then softened. "Ella," he said, voice low and deliberate, "I saw your presentation yesterday with the board. Your handling of those questions, particularly how you steered the conversation back to the opportunity for carbon offset financing, was exceptional." He paused, leaning forward. "I want you to know, it wasn't just the data. It was the confidence. The way you spoke up when the room froze."
Ella Sachs Barmat.
Praise from Mason Sterling was rare, and this was unguarded admiration. Not the brief nods she'd come to expect. She acknowledged it quietly. "Thank you, Mason. I appreciate your feedback." He tapped his pen against the desk. "I meant it. And this afternoon, I'd like you to join me for a meeting that's outside your normal purview." Ella recalled the calendar note about the Coastal Resilience Grant Committee. "Of course. Should I prepare anything specific?" Mason shook his head. "Just you, me, and the grant application. I want your input on the community outreach section. You have a knack for translating technical language into compelling narratives." She nodded, silent gratitude and something deeper swelling in her chest. This was the kind of collaborative engagement she'd envisioned when first accepting an EA role, far beyond clerical duties, woven directly into the company's mission. By 1:00 p.m. they arrived at a small conference room on the 22nd floor, with city views that captured both the calm bay and the distant shipping cranes. Seated at a polished walnut table, the two of them spread a draft of MetroStone's grant application for federal funding to install living shorelines along Coastal Ridge. Ella's heart hammered as she watched Mason's expression relax in her presence. He began by sleuthing through the introduction. "I want to underscore how predicted sea level rise will intersect with projected population growth. Yesterday's analysis was a good start, but your voice can make it human." He slid the proposal across to her. Ella picked up a red pen and began annotating, adding a section on how local fishermen relied on those very shorelines. a note on partnership opportunities with a nearby tribal council, and a suggestion to include quotes from community leaders. As she wrote, she glanced up to see Mason observing her, head tilted, eyes crinkling in that way she now recognized as affection. He chose that moment to lean back. "I've seen executives micromanage these things, but you," he paused, searching for words. "You get the community angle. It's invaluable." She met his gaze and smiled, heart fluttering. "I grew up near the water. I understand what's at stake." They continued refining the document for another half hour. With every annotation, he deferred to her judgment. At one point he looked at her margin note, representation of elders' traditional knowledge, and said, "I wouldn't have thought of that. Thank you." On the elevator ride down, barely 10 minutes later, Mason's phone buzzed. He silenced it. "I've got a call with the mayor's office in 5. You're welcome to sit in." Ella hesitated. This was the kind of high-stakes conversation she'd only glimpsed from afar. But his nod was encouraging. She followed him into his glass-walled office and took a seat off to the side. As he dialed, she slipped a discreet earbud into her left ear, tuned to the muted conference line. 19 minutes later, Mason wrapped up. He leaned back in his chair and finally turned to Ella. "In my 12 years in this building, I've never invited an EA to sit in on that." His voice was soft, half laughing. "I did today because I trust your perspective. You caught a nuance in that last question about federal matching funds. It sealed the deal." Ella's fingers trembled slightly. "I'm honored." He took a breath and exhaled. "You're not just here to keep my calendar. Your insights matter." As the week drew to a close, the pattern became clear. Mason found ways, both subtle and unmistakable, to involve Ella in decisions that extended well beyond scheduling. He asked her to review a draft press release about a new sustainable materials partner. He sought her advice on email copy to prospective tenants in a luxury high-rise. He even forwarded her an internal memo on vendor negotiation strategy, asking if her Boston contacts could recommend alternative suppliers. Each request came with a "thoughts" or "your call," elevating her from assistant to advisor. Yet Mason never overstepped the boundaries of professional respect. His praise was genuine but never effusive, his trust obvious but never burdensome. Ella felt herself growing more confident, not only in her analytical abilities, but also in her place beside him. Early Saturday morning, just as she was about to step out for her usual coastal jog, her phone chimed with a single-line text from Mason.
Café Moro, 8 uur.
"My treat. I want to hear your weekend take on the sustainability roadmap." Ella stared at the message, heart thudding. A Saturday meeting? Tucked inside a casual invitation. She realized this was his way of saying her ideas were important enough to merit weekend time. She tapped back, "See you at 8. They met at Café Moro, a low-key spot known for organic oat lattes and avocado toast. Mason was already there when Ella arrived, laptop open, 2 cups on the table. He smiled when she slid into the seat across from him. "Thank you for coming." She sipped her latte. "Of course." He leaned forward. "Tell me what you really think about pivoting our next project toward modular, prefab units. We could reduce construction timeline by 30%, slash waste by 40%. But I want your read on community acceptance." Ella spoke passionately for 15 minutes, drawing from her interviews with local residents. As she outlined her insights, Mason quietly listened, jotting notes on a napkin, blue ink, neat handwriting. When she finished, he said, "That's exactly the nuance I need." He slid her napkin back. "Cover letter for the board summary? Credit that to your research." Ella smiled, exhilarated by his acknowledgement. In that moment, amid morning sunlight slanting through cafe windows and the scent of roasted coffee beans, she felt seen as a true partner in his vision. Back at MetroStone on Monday, the transformation was unmistakable. On the corporate intranet, the sustainability roadmap now carried a small byline: Lead Analysis and Community Research by Ella Harper. Someone had also posted a congratulatory message on the Yammer feed. "Kudos to REA for her modular housing insights." tagging Mason and the sustainability division. As Ella walked by Mason's office, she peeked in to see him reviewing the updated document. He looked up and offered a genuine, warm smile, one that reached his eyes and took Ella by surprise. No fanfare, no fanboys, just the steady affirmation that she belonged in every strategic conversation. When he returned her portfolio case at the end of the day, he paused and said quietly, "Welcome to the team. Truly." Ella's chest tightened. She had always craved a place where her expertise mattered. Under Mason's quiet affection and confidence, she had found it. Walking out that evening, Ella reflected on how far she'd come. 6 years ago, she had sailed away from Coastal Ridge with a head full of algorithms and a heart full of ambition. Now she stood at the epicenter of a real estate empire's transformation, her skills and perspectives woven into every major decision. Mason's silent support had elevated her role from assistant to indispensable colleague. And as the sun dipped beyond the bay, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet, Ella realized that in Mason's quiet affection, she had found both a mentor and an ally, someone who valued her voice not for its rarity, but for its clarity and truth. In the vast, complex world of MetroStone Group, Ella Harper had discovered where she truly belonged. 7 years ago, Ella Harper arrived at the summer tech camp in San Diego with the bright-eyed optimism of a 21-year-old computer science major from Cal State. Her suitcase bore several homemade t-shirts emblazoned with algorithmic puns, and her notepad was already half filled with sketches of data visualization ideas. The camp's beachfront campus buzzed with the energy of hundreds of students from across the country, each eager to tackle coding challenges, build prototype apps, and forge networks that might one day shape Silicon Valley. On the first morning, after a brisk jog along Pacific Beach, Ella attended the opening keynote by the camp director, a Stanford alum turned venture capitalist. He challenged them to think beyond zeros and ones and develop solutions that could positively impact communities. Ella felt her pulse quicken. She'd grown up in Coastal Ridge, a smaller town where economic shifts often led to boarded-up storefronts. She envisioned using predictive modeling to help local entrepreneurs choose the right locations for pop-up shops. That afternoon, as part of the camp's signature innovation sprint, participants were divided into teams of 5. Ella found herself paired with 3 fellow campers and, unexpectedly, Mason Sterling, a 24-year-old mechanical engineering major from MIT who had won his spot through a scholarship funded by a tech foundation. Mason carried himself with quiet confidence. He had already built a 3D printed drone hull and led a robotics club to regional championships. Ella admired his technical chops and friendly manner as he greeted each teammate by name. They gathered in a sunlit room overlooking the Pacific Ocean, whiteboards at the ready. The challenge: develop a prototype for a mobile solution that could help coastal communities monitor environmental risks in real time. 10 hours later, they stood before the judging panel with a working demonstration, ShoreGuard, an app integrated with low-cost sensors that detected rising water levels, salinity changes, and temperature shifts along beaches and estuaries. Ella had designed the back-end algorithm, a predictive model that flagged potentially dangerous threshold breaches before they occurred. Mason had engineered the buoy-mounted hardware and optimized the energy-harvesting solar cells. Together, they synthesized data science and mechanical engineering into a cohesive package. Their work earned them top honors that day and a small development grant to continue refining ShoreGuard. As applause filled the auditorium, Mason caught Ella's eye and gave a thumbs up. Without thinking, she grinned and vowed aloud, "If our team wins this sprint, I promise I'll introduce myself properly at the closing banquet and maybe ask you out for coffee." Her teammates laughed. Mason raised an eyebrow, quirked a half-smile, and nodded. It was a spontaneous, light-hearted moment, but for Mason, it lodged itself deep in memory. Over the next 2 days, the camp was a whirlwind of workshops on user experience design, panel discussions with startup founders, and late-night coding sessions fueled by energy drinks and pizza. Ella and Mason paired off frequently, swapping ideas over whiteboard doodles and debating the trade-offs between battery life and data transmission frequencies. Their conversations flowed easily from technical refinements to personal anecdotes, Mason's fascination with early robotics competitions, Ella's childhood summers spent beachcombing for sea glass to finance her first laptop. At the closing banquet, held on a windswept lawn under paper lanterns, Ella spotted Mason across the chattering crowd. She'd just delivered her acceptance speech as part of the winning team. Flushed and exhilarated, she walked toward him, determined to honor her promise. But the moment she reached his side, she froze. Mason's phone buzzed. He stepped away to take a call from his mother. By the time he returned and noticed Ella standing there, the final shuttle to downtown had departed, and she had to dash back to her dorm to pack for an early morning flight home. Embarrassed by her hesitation and the late hour, she hurried past Mason with a quick wave, but never said the words she'd meant to say. The next morning, they said their goodbyes in the dorm lobby. Mason's suitcase rolled beside him as he offered, "Hey, dinner sometime when we're both back home?" But Ella, still bleary-eyed and eager to catch her plane, stammered, "I'd love to, but, I need to get to LAX." And with that half-promise, she was gone. Mason watched her vanish into the crowd, heart sinking as the dorm doors closed behind her. He waited by the main exit until security gently advised he clear the lobby, then drifted back to the empty walkway. That unspoken maybe echoed louder than any victory cheer. Over the next 7 years, Mason built a distinguished career in mechanical systems design, earning accolades at MIT and internships at leading aerospace firms. He never forgot Ella's bright energy or the way her predictive algorithms had transformed Shoreguard from a camp project into a viable prototype. Late at night, he'd scroll through his camp photos, pausing on the image of Ella triumphantly holding their trophy on stage. Every time, he'd recall the promise she almost fulfilled, and the one he'd reciprocated with a nod. Meanwhile, Ella graduated with honors, spent a summer interning at a data analytics startup in Boston, and ultimately pursued her master's degree at Harvard's data science program. Between her achievements, speaking engagements, published research on housing market modeling, her memories of that summer tech camp weekend settled into the back of her mind, like a half-remembered dream. She'd occasionally wonder about the boy who had built solar-powered buoys, but life moved fast. New friendships, career deadlines, the steady hum of city living.
Now,
as executive assistant to MetroStone's CEO, she organized sustainability grants, refined development proposals, and co-directed strategic initiatives, sometimes forgetting the straightforward joy of building something at the pace of a weekend sprint. Yet, when she first encountered Mason Sterling's poised, purposeful leadership style, a subconscious spark flicked to life. There was something familiar about him, an echo from her past that she couldn't place. One Tuesday afternoon, as she and Mason reviewed a feasibility report for Coastal Ridge's new eco-district, her phone buzzed with a Dropbox notification. Photo from summer tech camp. Bewildered, she opened it. There, amid a folder of generic company images, was a photo of herself and a younger Mason, holding their Shoreguard trophy beneath a banner reading Summer Tech Camp 2018. Her breath caught. The same Mason Sterling. He had preserved that snapshot, tucked away, accessible only to him, and now her. Her eyes lifted to his. He offered the faintest smile. She slid the phone across the table. "I didn't know you kept this." She tapped the photo. Mason's brows lifted in quiet surprise. "I never deleted it," he said softly. "It reminded me of our first collaboration, of your promise."
he paused.
"I made one, too, that if you ever came back this way, I'd make sure you never slipped away again." Ella's heart pounded. 7 years of unspoken hopes and what-ifs flooded back. She realized how much weight that simple promise held for both of them. In that moment, the strategies and spreadsheets faded into the background, and she saw Mason not just as her CEO, but as the partner she'd almost asked out beneath San Diego's lantern lights. They sat in that boardroom, two professionals in a high-stakes environment, yet they shared something infinitely more profound, the echo of a promise made long ago, now ready to be fulfilled. And as Ella looked into Mason's steady gaze, She finally understood the real potential their collaboration held, no longer confined to algorithms or mechanical systems, but extending into the realm of heartfelt commitment and shared futures. Ella Harper stepped into the converted Pier District warehouse just as the setting sun cast long shadows across exposed brick walls. The room hummed with anticipation. 30 teams clustered around makeshift workstations, soldering irons sparking, laptops whirring, and half-eaten slices of pizza forming greasy stacks. A giant screen at the front proclaimed MetroStone Innovation Sprint, 48-hour hackathon, along with the 4 judging criteria: feasibility, impact, user experience, and sustainability. Ella's heart pounded. This was no mere side project. It was her chance to demonstrate that she belonged here not only as an executive assistant, but as an innovator. Within minutes, she assembled her squad. Zoe Kim, the UX designer she'd met at Boston's tech camp; Raj Patel, a hardware guru who'd built drones in his dorm room; Luis Alvarez, an industrial designer with a 3D printer under his arm; and Nina Chen, a backend developer known for her lightning-fast cloud integrations. They claimed a corner table, cleared space for soldering breadboards, and sketched their concept on a shared whiteboard: smart tiles, modular floor panels embedded with vibration sensors, humidity probes, and LED indicators. Each tile would monitor structural health in real time, detect water intrusion, and transmit data wirelessly to a central dashboard, helping facility managers prevent costly damage before it happened. As the clock struck 1, a referee rang a bell. Teams scrambled to gather components: ESP32 microcontrollers, accelerometers, DHT22 humidity sensors, spare resistors, jumper wires, and breadboards. Luis unboxed white ABS filament and set his portable 3D printer to print the initial tile housings. Raj soldered microcontrollers to sensor arrays, murmuring about optimal sampling rates. "We need at least 200 Hz for vibration spikes," he explained, while Nina configured a lightweight MQTT broker on her laptop, ready to ingest incoming data streams. Zoe fired up her design software to craft a clean, interactive dashboard that mapped each tile's status onto a floor plan grid. Ella anchored herself at a corner station, opening her code editor and drafting a Python script to compute rolling standard deviations of vibration readings, triggering threshold-based alerts. By evening, the first prototype sprang to life. A glowing tile lit green under normal conditions and flashed red when Ella tapped it sharply. She watched the laptop screen update in real time. Tile B3 pulsed red, matching the LED on the panel, while the dashboard graph spiked on her chart. A surge of exhilaration coursed through her. They had proof of concept. Now came the hard part: making it robust, scalable, and user-friendly. Pizza boxes piled up as the team worked through the night. Ella refined her anomaly detector, adjusting sensitivity to reduce false alarms from ambient vibrations like passing trucks. Nina wrote a lightweight Node.js service that forwarded alerts to a simulated maintenance email system. Raj wired additional power regulators to ensure stable operation under load. Luis retooled his printer settings to add durable snap-fit connectors on each tile. Zoe iterated on the dashboard's color scheme, adding a warning state in yellow for moderate anomalies, red for critical alerts, and a history panel to track trends over time. Their table became a ballet of collaboration, each member anticipating the other's needs as if they'd been working together for months. At dawn the next morning, Ella's eyes stung from lack of sleep, but the energy in the air was electric. Teams around them napped in chairs, strewn with empty coffee cups and energy drink cans. But Smart Tiles was humming smoothly. Ella ran a quick test. She poured a small vial of water onto tile A1. The humidity sensor's reading jumped, the LED glowed blue, and a moisture alert popped up on the dashboard. She grinned, proof that the system could detect both structural stress and moisture intrusion. She jotted down notes to integrate these alerts into one unified notification system. Around midday, word spread that Mason Sterling himself would tour the floor. Ella's stomach twisted as she and her team gathered behind their tile grid. When Mason appeared, flanked by Olivia Chen, the head of talent, Ella felt a rush of nerves. Would he view this hackathon as a distraction from her EA duties? She steadied herself. As he approached, she tapped the central tile. Its red LED flared. Zoe clicked on the dashboard. A crisp alert appeared. Talby 3. Vibration exceeded. Timestamp. Mason paused, watching the demo. Ella took the lead. We've built smart tiles to give building managers immediate, localized alerts. Over time, we layer predictive algorithms to forecast stress patterns based on usage cycles and environmental factors. This reduces emergency repairs by up to 30%, saves thousands in materials, and enhances occupant safety. She linked an environmental sensor stream, temperature drift across the floor. All data flows into a unified dashboard or mobile app, so teams can triage issues without walking every corridor. Mason nodded, impressed. He asked a technical question. How would we integrate this into our existing BSM software? Without hesitation, Ella sketched an API-based approach on a nearby whiteboard, outlining data schemas and authentication flows. He scribbled down notes, then pulled out his phone to snap a photo. As he moved on, she felt a swell of pride. She had helped shape MetroStone's future, once again. In the final 2 hours, the team rehearsed their pitch in the central loft. No longer novices, they presented a polished 3-minute demo. Zoe introduced the problem of costly reactive maintenance. Raj showcased the elegant tile design. Ella explained the analytics. Nina demonstrated the cloud backend, and Luis closed with a user-centric mobile prototype. They practiced the handoffs down to the second, ensuring a seamless, confident delivery. At 5 p.m., the loft fell silent as each team presented to the judging panel, 8 executives, including Mason and an external sustainability sponsor. When Smart Tiles took the stage, Ella's heart hammered. She and her teammates executed their demo flawlessly. The live alert lit up, the dashboard animated, and Mason's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He leaned forward, whispering to Olivia, "That's exactly the level of innovation we need." In that moment, Ella knew they had bridged the gap between concept and corporate strategy. After deliberation, Mason stepped forward. The screen behind him switched to hackathon results. He smiled. All of our teams showcased inspiring ideas, but one entry stood out for its technical execution, immediate impact potential, and alignment with our sustainability goals. The winner is Smart Tiles by Team Shoreguard. Ella's chest tightened as applause erupted. She hugged Zoe, Raj, Luis, and Nina, each face alight with triumph. Later, Mason found her among the crowd. "Ella," he said quietly, "you've shown leadership, technical insight, and strategic vision. I want to integrate Smart Tiles into our pilot program next quarter. Please prepare a brief for the executive committee."
Ella swallowed, nodding.
She realized that MetroStone's hackathon was more than a contest. It was a crucible that forged her role as a genuine innovator within the company. Monday morning, a folder labeled Smart Tiles Pilot Proposal sat on her desk. Invitations awaited meetings with sustainability, engineering, and IT. Ella took a steadying breath and began outlining her next steps. She had come to MetroStone as an assistant. She was staying to leave a lasting imprint on its future. And in Mason Sterling's unwavering support and challenge, she had found the partnership that would bring her fateful hackathon vision to life. Ella Harper never expected MetroStone's annual urban art fair to be the setting for the most important moment of her life. Held in a sprawling repurposed warehouse on Pier 37, the event showcased the company's latest community-driven installations alongside avant-garde works by local artists. That evening, the theme Cities of Tomorrow transformed the cavernous hall into a sensory kaleidoscope. Kinetic sculptures responded to footsteps, augmented reality murals shifted as visitors moved, and suspended holograms fluttered like digital butterflies against old steel trusses. The fair was meant to celebrate MetroStone's public space achievements and foster civic pride. Instead, it became the stage for Mason Sterling's quiet, perfect proposal. Ella and Mason arrived together just after sunset. He wore a tailored charcoal suit over a crisp white shirt, the top button undone, his nod to business casual Southern California style. She had chosen a simple but elegant navy sheath dress that fell just below the knee, paired with polished leather boots and a lightweight trench coat slung over her arm. They slipped into the fair hand in hand, weaving through clusters of consultants, city council members, nonprofit leaders, and neighborhood activists, each engrossed in conversation or smartphone photos of the interactive art. The air buzzed with electronic music mixed with live percussion, an upbeat soundtrack for the installations. Under a canopy of paper lanterns, they paused before a solar-powered pavilion designed by MetroStone's sustainability team. Its translucent roof captured UV rays to charge lanterns that glowed at night, casting geometric patterns on the ground. Ella recalled her input on the community outreach plan that had funded this pavilion. Local high school students had painted murals on its columns, and she'd coordinated workshops teaching basic solar principles. Mason watched her with a soft smile. He leaned close. "That pavilion has your fingerprints on it more than anything else here," he said, voice low above the ambient beat. His pride in her contributions warmed her stomach. "It looks amazing at night." She touched a painted column, tracing the swirling waves students had sketched. "It really does. I heard they're expanding the program to 3 more neighborhoods next year." They drifted onward, past an AR mural that superimposed projected greenery onto bare walls when people walked by. Next, an artist's installation of kinetic cranes assembled from recycled steel and homage to coastal ridges shipyards spun slowly above a reflecting pool dotted with lily pads. Ella admired the juxtaposition of art and industrial history, the very ethos of MetroStone's urban renewal mission. Mason led her to the far side of the warehouse, where a makeshift amphitheater sat beneath a lattice of hanging planters and festoon lights. The wooden seating modules, another MetroStone prototype, had been installed just that afternoon. Ella recognized the design instantly. Low-profile benches built from reclaimed timber and powder-coated steel frames, arranged in a semicircle around a small stage. They had co-developed the concept last year as part of the company's public park revitalization blueprint, and watching it come to life in this communal gathering spot had felt like a tangible dream. The amphitheater was empty now, save for the art fair technicians wrapping up lighting checks. As the final ambient instruments faded from nearby speakers, Mason guided Ella onto the stage, away from the milling crowd. The planters above glowed emerald green, and the overhead lanterns cast a gentle, golden light. A quartet had just finished a piece of contemporary chamber music. Their last chords still resonated faintly through the rafters. Ella looked around, surprised. "Mason, what are we doing here?" He turned toward her, expression earnest beneath the soft glow. He led her to a single bench at center stage and sat beside her. She heard the distant laughter of guests, but felt cocooned by the quiet intimacy of the moment. He took a measured breath.
Ella.
"When I first met you at that tech camp in San Diego, you waved a spark of possibility into my world. I'd been focused on mechanical precision, hinges, trusses, load-bearing beams. You showed me that structures exist for people, not machines. You infused data with humanity and designs with heart." Ella felt her pulse quicken. The chords of memory unspooled. Nights debugging prototype code in dorm labs, late-night whiteboarding sessions over ramen, sunlit morning runs on the beach, where they sketched drone hulls and data flows on paper napkins. None of that had ever felt like romance, just partnership. But in Mason's calm, unwavering gaze, it felt like something more. He continued, voice low but resonant. "Since then, you've been by my side through every flood risk study, every grant proposal, every winter meeting with skeptical board members. You've balanced my spreadsheets and pushed my presentations beyond bullet points into stories about community resilience. Every time I hesitated, you brought clarity. Every time I doubted, you brought conviction." He paused, gently brushing a strand of hair back from her face. "You're the only partner I've ever needed, my equal in innovation and my balance in life." Ella stifled a breath. The soft amber light caught the ring box as Mason produced a small, matte black case from his jacket pocket. He opened it, revealing a simple white gold band with a flush-set diamond that flickered like a starlit promise. Her voice caught. The chamber quartet's final echo faded. All she could hear was the thump of her own heart. She looked into his eyes, saw the full depth of his devotion. "Ella Harper," he said, closing any remaining distance between them. "Will you marry me?" A hush fell. Though they were alone on stage, the entire warehouse seemed to pause. Lanterns dripped light overhead, and at the rim of her vision, she saw guests slowing their conversations, many turning toward the stage. A spontaneous ripple of applause began in the crowd, faint at first, then building.
Ella has trobat tic-tanat.
She tried to speak, but for a moment, only tears spilled. She placed a hand on his cheek, felt the warmth of his skin. She nodded, words finally finding her. "Yes, yes, of course I will." Mason slipped the ring onto her finger with gentle precision. She felt the cool metal nestle snugly against her skin, the diamond's facets catching the stage lights. The applause crescendoed as they rose, hand in hand, and faced the gathered fairgoers. In that moment, MetroStone's mission and her personal journey converged, innovation melding with intimacy in a reclaimed warehouse-turned-communal canvas. They embraced under the hanging planters, and she sensed the future stretch before them. Every public plaza they'd design, every community garden they'd launch, and every late-night coding session or grant meeting they'd navigate together. Mason's quiet proposal had anchored their professional synergy in a promise of lifelong partnership. Afterward, as they greeted congratulators, artists, executives, city officials, and neighbors, Ella noticed Olivia Chen's delighted grin and heard whispered excitement among the sustainability team. Photographers drifted in to capture the newly engaged couple against murals that shifted color with movement. Children darted between benches, and volunteers arranged flower garlands across the amphitheater seats. Everywhere she looked, art and architecture celebrated community, a reflection of everything she and Mason had built together. Later that night, after the urban art fair winds down and most guests had left, Ella and Mason lingered alone on the now empty stage. The lights were dimmed, leaving only the soft glow of a single planter overhead. He draped his jacket over Ella's shoulders and offered his arm. She linked her arm through his, savoring the quiet after the day's emotional whirlwind. They walked out of the warehouse under a sky thick with stars, the bay's water reflecting city lights. Mason paused on the pier's edge, pulling Ella close. "You have my heart," he whispered, "and my unwavering commitment. Together, there's no limit to what we can build." Ella leaned into him, listening to water lap against pilings and distant horns of harbor traffic. She felt anchored in a new way, by love, by promise, by shared purpose. The Urban Art Fair had been about showcasing bold visions for the future. Here, beneath lanterns and lilies and reclaimed steel, she and Mason had forged their own indelible vision, one of partnership, creativity, and steadfast devotion for every city they would build and every life they would share. When Ella Harper and Mason Sterling decided on a small, intimate wedding, they imagined a ceremony that reflected the values they'd built their relationship on: authenticity, community, and a deep respect for the spaces they inhabited. They found the perfect venue, a century-old boathouse on coastal Ridges Harbor. Its weathered timbers and arched windows bathed in late summer sunlight. The wooden floors had once carried the footsteps of fishermen, and now would witness the vows of two people determined to anchor their lives in love and partnership. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Ella focused on details that mattered most. She selected data-driven seating assignments to mix families, longtime friends, and MetroStone colleagues at tables arranged under swaying lanterns hung from exposed rafters. She collaborated with Zoe Kim, now her maid of honor, on invitations printed on recycled cotton paper, each one hand-stamped with a map of coastal Ridge Harbor. She worked with Fatima Al-Bashir to source locally grown wildflowers for centerpieces, lavender sprigs, white daisies, and sprigs of rosemary tied with jute twine. Mason, balancing travel between MetroStone's regional offices, took charge of the sound system. curating a playlist that transitioned from the string quartet's classical arrangements to a more contemporary set featuring Ella's favorite indie folk artists. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and calm. Ella awoke in her childhood home, where her parents had prepared a small breakfast, scrambled eggs with chives from their garden, heirloom tomato slices on sourdough toast, and coffee brewed in an old French press. They gifted her a handwritten letter recalling the day she'd first learned to ride a bike, a memory of her face bright with joy and determination. She pressed the letter to her heart, feeling the same exhilaration pulse through her veins. Meanwhile, Mason read a note from his father, recalling the day he'd brought his own crying newborn son home from the hospital. The note ended with a promise: "I trust you to build a family as strong as the structures you design." Mason folded the letter carefully into his jacket before heading to the boathouse. By 2 p.m., guests began arriving. The soft chords of a string quartet drifted through open windows as friends hugged and children chased fireflies around the old pilings outside. The boathouse's interior was transformed into a simple chapel, white linen chairs flanking a central aisle lined with lanterns and petals. Mason waited at the end of the aisle, dressed in a tailored navy suit that echoed the harbor's deep blues, his tie loosely knotted in deference to the casual coastal setting. He held a single lavender bloom, matching Ella's bouquet, and watched the door. Ella made her entrance to a solo violin rendition of Canon in D, held aloft by her father's arm. Her dress was simple, a flowing ivory chiffon gown with thin straps and an open back, billowing gently as she walked. Her hair was swept back into a loose braid adorned with tiny lavender buds. When Mason saw her, his expression softened. Suddenly, his eyes glistened, and the world around them melted away. They exchanged vows beneath the beams that had supported boats for generations. Mason spoke first, his voice steady but warm. "Ella, you are my constant in a world of shifting tides. From the moment we met, you taught me to see beyond walls and data, to see heart, purpose, and possibility. Today I promise to listen to your ideas, champion your dreams, and stand by your side as we build not just structures, but a life full of love, laughter, and shared adventure." He slid the lavender bloom into Ella's hand and reached for her ring box. The band was simple white gold, echoing the ring he'd given her at the Urban Art Fair, and as he placed it on her finger, guests wiped away tears. Ella smiled, her voice soft but clear. "Mason, you have shown me that a partnership can be equal parts love and respect. You've trusted me with your vision, cheered me on in every challenge, and built me up in ways I never knew I needed. I promise to encourage you, to challenge you, and to walk beside you through every blueprint and beyond every horizon. With you, every moment is an open sky." She placed his ring in return, a polished silver band engraved with "Tomorrow and Always." A gentle breeze stirred as the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. "You may kiss the bride." Their lips met, and the crowd erupted in applause. Lanterns shimmered overhead as they turned to lead the recessional down the petal-strewn aisle, laughter and music lifting into the late afternoon sky. Cocktails followed on the adjacent dock. Local white wine, honey lavender lemonade, and passed hors d'oeuvres of mini lobster rolls and Parmesan-crusted zucchini fritters. Mason and Ella moved through the crowd, greeting guests and accepting hugs. At sunset, they broke for dinner under a tent draped in sheer white fabric. Tables bore rustic centerpieces of driftwood and succulents, interspersed with votive candles in mason jars. Toasts began. Ella's sister recounted childhood escapades, Mason's best friend reminisced about hackathon victories, and Zoe delivered a heartfelt speech about Ella's journey from data scientist to the woman who found her perfect partner. As twilight deepened, the quartet gave way to an acoustic guitarist. Father-daughter and mother-son dances unfolded under strings of fairy lights. Then Mason led Ella to the center of the floor for their first dance, swaying to a soft ballad that spoke of home and belonging. Ella rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart match the music's gentle rhythm. They danced as if alone, even amid the circle of loved ones watching them. The night ended with a simple dessert buffet, lemon blueberry tarts, salted caramel brownies, and cupcakes topped with lavender frosting. A sparkler exit awaited the couple. Guests lined the dock holding sparkling fires, guiding Mason and Ella to a small, vintage fishing boat decked with lanterns and flowers. As they climbed aboard, Mason wrapped a blanket around both their shoulders. They pushed off, gliding across the harbor under a canopy of stars, the water reflecting the town's distant lights. Their honeymoon began at dawn. Mason piloted the boat himself, steering toward the Channel Islands, a short sail away but worlds removed from daily life. They docked on Santa Cruz Island, where they'd booked a cabin through a conservation-minded retreat program. The cabin was simple, cedar siding, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a solar array on the roof. No Wi-Fi, only a single landline and the quiet rhythm of waves lapping at the rocks below. Their days unfolded in unhurried harmony. Each morning they hiked trails through rare Torrey pines, pausing to photograph coastal vistas. Mason carried a small sketchbook, drawing native fan palms and Ella's silhouette against the sunrise. Ella collected tide pool specimens, starfish, sea anemones, and sea lettuce, documenting their discoveries in her notebook. Midday, they picnicked on avocado and smoked salmon wraps at secluded coves. Afternoon sun compelled them into the water, where they kayaked along kelp forests and watched seals sun themselves on offshore rocks. Evenings brought seafood stews simmered over the cabin's wood stove, shared under the flicker of LED lanterns. They read aloud from a tattered copy of Thoreau's Walden, passages about simplicity and living deliberately. On the fourth night, as dusk bled into night, they lay on a driftwood log and watched meteor showers arc across the Milky Way. Wrapped in each other's arms, they whispered future plans, ideas for community gardens in new MetroStone developments, strategies for integrating smart tile prototypes into affordable housing, and hopes for a family. Midweek, they sailed to a neighboring island, Anacapa, where they volunteered at a marine research station, helping catalog shorebird nests and clear invasive isoplankton. They shared laughter with scientists, poring over findings that aligned with MetroStone's shoreline preservation initiatives. The work was muddy but rewarding, and Mason marveled at how seamlessly Ella adapted to each new environment, her curiosity and compassion undimmed by any setting. Their final day dawned soft with morning mist. Over coffee brewed in a percolator, they watched the harbor come alive below. A single fishing boat slipped into view. Ella leaned over the cabin railing. Mason placed a hand on her back. "This week has been everything I hoped for," he said, voice hushed amid gull calls. "Waking up here, working side by side, building something both tangible and timeless. I've never felt more alive or more at peace." Ella turned to him, eyes bright. "I feel the same. We've built memories I'll cherish always." She paused. "Now I can't wait to get home, to our home, and start building the rest of our life together." They packed their gear, locked the cabin, and motored back to Coastal Ridge under an early morning sky. As they docked, Ella looked back at the island's silhouette against the horizon, a radiant promise of new frontiers both in nature and in their partnership. When their honeymoon ended, they returned to the boathouse in Coastal Ridge, where they'd wed. Mason carried the wedding lanterns onto the repaired dock. Ella arranged succulents along the railing. Their married life began in the same simple, beautiful space that had united them. Now a home rich with love, art, and shared purpose. Their vows, spoken under old wooden beams and modern lantern glow, had been promises to innovate, to support, and to love without reservation. Their honeymoon had been a living workshop in partnership, planning, exploring, volunteering, and dreaming. And now, back on dry land, they faced the world hand in hand, ready to design not just buildings or public spaces, but a life woven with creativity, compassion, and the unwavering joy of having found home in each other. 5 years after their simple wedding at the Coastal Ridge Boathouse, Ella Harper and Mason Sterling awoke to the soft glow of dawn in their handcrafted seaside home. The house sat on pilings at the edge of the harbor, an elegant fusion of reclaimed wood, glass, and concrete that Mason had designed to reflect both Coastal Ridge's maritime heritage and MetroStone's commitment to sustainability. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the water, and a wraparound deck served as the family's breakfast nook, offering front-row views of bobbing sailboats and playful harbor seals. Ella rose first, as she had each school day since their daughter, Lyra, turned 4. She slipped into slippers beside the bed, tucked the quilt around Mason's shoulder, and padded across the wide-planked oak floor to open the sliding doors. A gentle breeze off the water carried the tang of salt and day's first seabirds. She breathed deeply, feeling gratitude for the life they'd built together. In the kitchen, Ella laid out sliced avocado, soft-boiled eggs, and toasted sourdough on a slender butcher block counter. Lyra scampered in wearing her preschool backpack, tiny in comparison to her already determined stride. She danced around her mother, hair in 2 bubble pigtails, eyes bright with morning energy.
Mom.
"Can I have the cinnamon oatmeal instead?" Lyra asked, her voice high and sweet. Ella nodded, scooping oats and a swirl of honey into a small bowl, topping it with cinnamon. Soon, their son Orion tumbled down the staircase, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He just turned 2, and his toddler gait was earnest, chubby legs shimmying in striped pajamas. Mason emerged then in rolled-up jeans and a soft chambray shirt. He scooped Orion into one arm and brushed a finger across Lyra's cheek. "Good morning, my girls," he said, planting a quick kiss on Ella's temple. "Morning, love," Ella replied, pressing her husband's hand against her cheek. Their first mornings as a family routine had settled into a comfortable rhythm, a harmonious counterpoint to their busy careers. Over breakfast on the deck, they wove together fragments of their days ahead. Ella's keynote for that afternoon's webinar on data-driven urban planning, Mason's site inspection of the upcoming Marina Promenade project, Lyra's finger-painting class, and Orion's first flight in the toddler glider at the community park. Between bites of oatmeal and sips of rich, local roast coffee, they solved miniature world's future, the occasional squabble over who'd drive Lyra to preschool offset by their shared laughter. By 8:30, Ella and Mason bundled the kids into the back of their electric station wagon, coated in a soft sea blue that matched the harbor, and shared a quick kiss. "Have a great day," Mason said, buckling Orion's car seat. Ella wrapped an arm around Lyra's shoulders in the front seat. "And you two be good, okay?" Together, they watched the kids run toward the elementary school's playground where bright banners fluttered above the entrance. Then Ella and Mason climbed into the front seats, exchanged a grin, and headed down Harbor Drive. Back at home, the coastal breeze carried the rhythmic hum of waves against the house's pilings. Ella sat at her open-concept home office, an airy loft space overlooking the living room, surrounded by dual monitors streaming real-time analytics from MetroStone's sustainability dashboard. She reviewed a new dataset, satellite-derived vegetation indices for the city's riparian buffer zones, cross-referenced with building permit data to propose expanded green corridors. Within hours, she'd deliver recommendations that would shape the municipality's next bond measure. Meanwhile, Mason arrived at the Marina Promenade construction site, a linear park stretching 2 miles along reclaimed docklands. He donned his hard hat and AI-powered safety glasses, which overlaid digital blueprints on the cranes and terrace seating modules. He inspected the newly installed solar pergolas, an adaptation of their Honeymoon Island cabins, and adjusted a joint's steel bracket for maximum rigidity. The foreman approached. "Site manager says you're planning another community archaeology demo near the old lighthouse foundation?" Mason nodded. "Yes. Ella's analysis shows that foot traffic patterns cluster there. It's a perfect spot for public history exhibits combined with interactive lighting beneath the boardwalk. Let's get the permits finalized." He tapped his smartwatch, sending a blueprint update to Ella's inbox. A chime acknowledged her presence. She tapped back quickly with a note of approval. Even miles apart, they collaborated seamlessly, their professional lives interwoven like a well-tailored blueprint. That evening, as the sun dipped behind palm-framed rooftops, the family reconvened on the deck for dinner. Orion scampered ahead to occupy his usual spot at the low child-sized picnic table, topped with finger foods, grilled chicken strips, roasted sweet potatoes, and strips of cucumber. Lyra carried her art portfolio, colored sketches of her preschool friends beside a futuristic city skyline. She asked proudly, "Mom, do you think MetroStone's planners would like my building designs?" Ella crouched beside her daughter, studying the brightly colored rectangles and arches. "I'd pitch that to Mason tomorrow,"
she teased.
Lyra beamed. Orion squealed with delight and yanked at Mason's sleeve. Mason scooped the boy into his lap. "I'd definitely consider building a swing bridge just for kids." He traced Orion's cheek with his thumb. The table fell quiet for a moment as stars appeared overhead, the first fireflies flickering among the potted sea grasses along the railing. After dinner, Mason led Lyra to her bedtime reading nook inside the living room's glass bay. He read her a story about a young engineer who built bridges for elephants, and Lyra curled against him, heavy-lidded and content. Meanwhile, Ella rocked Orion in the nearby nursery, humming a lullaby while tracking the sun's last glow on Orion's percussion mobile, a gift from MetroStone's community arts program. When the children were asleep, Ella and Mason slipped outside again, framed by lanterns strung above a small hot tub built into the deck. Steam rose into the night air as they soaked shoulder-deep, the harbor lights shimmering on Orion's pilings below. Mason drew her close. "Remember when we first dreamed of this life? Boat rides on our honeymoon, designing public parks together?" His voice was soft, brimming with gratitude. Ella pressed her hand to his chest. "Every day I wake up and pinch myself. We have a home by the water, 2 amazing kids, and careers that matter. I couldn't ask for anything more." He kissed her temple, then turned to gaze at the star-dappled sky. "How about building a boathouse classroom for local students, workshops on marine biology and sustainable design?" he mused. "We could host weekend STEM labs right in our harbor." Her eyes lit up. "I can already imagine securing that grant. Maybe tie it to the Smart Tiles Group's next hackathon for student innovators." They brainstormed solutions long into the night, trading ideas like old friends, perfectly in sync. Several months later, on a crisp spring morning, Ella walked Lyra to the new community STEM center, a repurposed historic boathouse now outfitted as a classroom and makerspace. Solar panels lined its roof. Sonar-based tide gauges outside fed real-time data to interior displays, and modular work tables line the windows overlooking the harbor. Today's lesson: coding hydrodynamic models with smart tiles sensors placed along the dock, a capstone project born from Ella and Mason's professional partnership. Lyra bounded inside. Backpack swung over one shoulder, and at the door she waved to Mason, who greeted her with a high five and ushered her toward the sensor demo station. Ella watched from the walkway, heart swelling. Their daughter was not just a member of the community. She was a budding innovator in a learning environment that her parents had helped create. Ella joined Mason inside. "You've outdone yourself," she said, running a hand over a display showing real-time water level fluctuations. Mason leaned against the console, proud. "It's all you. The data framework you set up for ShoreGuard powered this entire center." She smiled, tracing the matrix of sensor tiles on the floor plan. "And your sustainable design gave it a home." They clasped hands, standing amid clusters of enthusiastic fifth graders and hovering parents, embodying the very synergy that had defined their union. That evening, back at home, they celebrated quietly on the deck with fresh seafood paella. Orion toddled barefoot across the boardwalk lights. Lyra practiced science fair notes at the picnic table, and Ella raised her glass of chilled rose to Mason. "To us, to home, family, and the communities we'll keep building." Mason clinked his glass gently against hers. "To a lifetime of dreams realized, and the many more we haven't yet imagined." They watched the harbor's lights flicker on as night fell, waves lapping at the pilings below. In the distance, the town's silhouette glowed softly, a reminder that their story was part of a larger narrative, one of neighborhoods revitalized, children inspired, and everyday places transformed by thoughtful design. In that moment, Ella and Mason Harper Sterling stood side by side, not just as husband and wife or CEO and strategist, but as architects of a life that wove professional purpose and personal joy so seamlessly that each morning's soft breeze felt like another gift. Their cozy waterfront home was more than a house. It was the culmination of every spark of innovation, every shared dream, and every promise, spoken beneath lantern-lit rafters and written in sunrise code, that had led them here. They turned inside as the lights dimmed, safe in the knowledge that their greatest project was the home they'd built together, and the legacy of love, creativity, and community they would leave for their children and for generations to come. And that brings us to the end of today's story on Truistery Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.